All right, well, welcome everybody. Welcome to today's Preaching Rocket webinar from the Rocket Company called Sermons That Stick. And as we get started, I just want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day today to spend that with us on this webinar. And I'm so thankful for that for two reasons. First of all, I'm so grateful that you've stepped away from all the stuff that you have going on in your church. I know we have people that work at large churches, and you've got all kinds of ministries and programs happening, and you're maybe holed up in your office or gathering together with your team, and you've put some of that ministry stuff just on hold for just a little bit to work on it, not just in it. And so I'm so grateful for that. I know we have bivocational pastors that join us for our webinars, and you've taken time not just away from your ministry, but from your job, from your paying job, to work on getting better. And so we are so grateful and honored, and we are really encouraged by you that you would take the time to work on preaching, because we know it's so important. We've heard the statistics. We know, we see the people we preach to every single week, and we know that what we do really matters. And so, but you have done something more than what most people do. You don't just know that it matters or believe that it matters. You've carved out time to work on this today. And so we are so grateful for that. Way to go. And we are proud of you. I know that sounds silly, but we really are. The second reason I'm encouraged that you've taken some time is that you've chosen to spend this time with us. And we do not take that for granted. We consider you a part of our family if you're joining us today. Our mission is to serve you, to help you succeed. And I know there's a lot of places you could go. There are tons of books on communication. I have them on my bookshelf just right there across from me. And there are books, there are conferences, there are CDs, there are resources, there are podcasts. There's all kinds of stuff that you could do to get better. But you've chosen to spend that with us. And so we are so grateful for that. And so as we get started, I want to introduce myself to you. My name is Michael Lukaszewski. You see it there on the screen if you're watching along. I know when I say my name, I always try to pronounce it out for people. So it's Lu-ka-zoo, like where the animals are, and ski. And that's how you say my last name. I know you've been wondering that. If you've gotten those emails from me, you're like, who is this guy that's sending me these emails? Well, that's me. And so I'm really glad to spend some time with you. Funny story is my wife and I have been married for just about 14 years, and her maiden name was Green. And so I maybe should have taken that one. And there's a picture of me, just in case you want to know what I look like. I don't know why you would want to do that. Maybe you're a stalker or something like that. But that's me. I used to be a youth pastor, and so I got my first job in a church when I was 18 years old. As a freshman at Florida State University, I had 4 kids in my youth group on the first Wednesday night service. Had all these chairs set up. 4 teenagers came in, got dropped off, and it was awesome. And so I spent about 12 years in student ministry, preaching and teaching students. And it's one of the things I think pastors should do on a couple of times a year is talk to students, talk to youth groups, go be a guest speaker somewhere. And so I cut my teeth in communication on speaking to teenagers who really weren't interested in hearing from me. And so that's how I learned how to do that. And then in 2006, my family and I moved to Atlanta, Georgia, where we planted a church. And for about 5 or 6 years, I planted and led a church where I spoke every week. Used to tell people we just did youth ministry for adults. But I became, I guess, a regular preacher, regular communicator. And so I spoke every week there at the church in Atlanta and loved it, and it was fantastic, and God's still blessing that great group of people. Today I work as the COO, the Chief Operating Officer at the Rocket Company, and so I get to be on the team with Casey and Renee and Becca and Karen and Brian, Jake, and all the people that help make all this happen. And so I love my job, love getting to encourage and challenge and equip pastors all around the world, really. And so that's what I do today. There's a picture of my family. That's the better. I can't do math. The better, not half, but anyway, I can't do the math. But that's my wife Jenny on the left, and those are my 3 kids on the right. Emma is in the top. There's Matthew on the right, and Lauren is our oldest, and she's going into 6th grade this year. That's us eating ice cream at the little ice cream shop around the corner from our house. And so that's my family. You know a little bit about me. I always like to introduce myself when we do these webinars. If you are on Twitter and want to interact today, here's a couple ways you can do it. If you just want to hashtag your tweets with Preaching Rocket, and you can just put Preaching Rocket in there. I would love for you to share a comment. If something today just really strikes you want to share that with your followers, that'd be awesome. Also, if you have any questions, Jake on our team monitors our social media, does social media for us, and he's standing by to answer any question you've got if you got questions about our programs or the content today or anything. And then there's my Twitter name as well. I'd love to interact with you. If you follow me on Twitter, I will follow you back at M. Lukaszewski, and you're probably going to want to scribble that down or go type me a tweet right now so you won't know how to spell that later on. But would love to interact with you there. Our mission at the Rocket Company is to help churches succeed. And so it took us a few years to arrive at this statement. You may think, well, that's great, but it took us a long year. The Rocket Company is about 5 years old. In our current form of doing Giving Rocket, Preaching Rocket, and Volunteer Rocket, it's just a couple years old. But Casey actually started the organization about 5 years ago. And over these last 5 years, it's just become really clear that we are called, and our mission is to just help churches succeed. And we talk a lot about our team, what it means to help. We talk a lot about who are these churches, and we talk a lot about what success looks like. But our mission is really to help you. We succeed when you succeed. And so if we can come alongside and help in any way, we do that primarily through 3 different areas. We have 3 what I would call brands. We have Giving Rocket, and the mission of Giving Rocket is to help you have more money for ministry. We don't believe raising money is evil or bad. We just don't want you to have to be, dumb and do car washes and have to have capital campaigns all the time. So we want to help you talk about money in your church and raise money all the time to fund your operational budget. And so we like to help churches have 20% more money than they have right now, not so you could be rich, but so you could do more ministry. And then we launched Volunteer Rocket. That's our newest one. It's a program to help you gain, train, and retain volunteers. I was listening to a audiobook yesterday, and it was talking about John Maxwell and how he said John Maxwell was talking about Bill Hybels. And Bill Hybels believes that the church is the greatest leadership development organization on earth because we can't give people titles or power or money, right? We're dealing with volunteers. And so your church probably is fueled by volunteers, and so we want to help you have more of them, but also have happier ones that don't burn out. And then we have Preaching Rocket. The goal of Preaching Rocket is just to help you prepare and deliver better sermons. We get quotes and feedback all the time. Here's somebody, this is just from the last couple weeks, emailed us in and said about Giving Rocket that 4 years ago giving was just a biblical mandate in their church, but it was a task, and Giving Rocket's helped change their philosophy. Since joining Giving Rocket, we are intentional about our giving talks. That's something we talk about. 45% of our giving is now digital. That's huge because when people are out of town, they can still give. We're looking at redoing our sanctuary, putting in kiosks, also implementing first-time giver systems. Giving Rockets helped us get to another place. We also use your special offering coaching to help launch another campus last fall, and that's huge for us. That's huge because we feel like we, in just a small way, get to help this church come along and launch another campus. Here's an email I got about Volunteer Rocket. I recently connected to Volunteer Rocket, and I think it's the best investment I made to recruit, training, and release volunteers. The done-for-you material and strategically designed modules allowed me to systematically transform volunteer ministry at our church. What's great is the fact that it's excellent for your volunteer ministry as a new church plant or fully engaged volunteer ministry. And so that's just feedback, just cut and paste from an email that we got. I shared that with our team. And so we're so excited to help churches volunteer. And then Preaching Rocket, here's an email I got from Ernie just a couple weeks ago. He said today, and he sent this on Monday, today, Monday, I am starting to answer the first 4 questions. This is a game changer for me. You've given me a new heart for sermon preparation. And Ernie, man, that is just unbelievable. And so when we get to come alongside and help people prepare and deliver these messages, it's so encouraging for us. But today's webinar is all about preaching. And so you signed up for a webinar called Sermons That Stick. You know a little bit about who I am. You know a little bit about what our organization does and how we can serve you. But I want to jump into the content for today and talk about how to create that sticky statement. So to start, I want to tell you a story. I want to tell you about a story. About a time I was speaking at a conference, and I was doing a workshop on sermon preparation. And this was kind of a room full of church planners and people who were new into the ministry of church, and they wanted to know about preaching. And so I began with just an exercise, and I had a dry erase board up in front of me, and I drew a line right down the middle, just like you see on your screen. And then I asked everybody to just pause and close their eyes and think and say anything that you ever remember from any sermon ever. I said, hey, listen, just close. Maybe it was your sermon that you preached last week. Maybe it was a sermon you heard when you were a kid. Whatever sermon you remember, just tell me anything, any statement, any story, anything ever that you remember from any sermon ever. And it was just crickets. And it was just silent. people, their brains are starting to work and trying to remember any sermon. This is a room full of preachers who just preached last week, right? And we're all struggling to remember what we talked about. And then one guy spoke up and he said something, and I wrote it down on the dry erase board. And then another guy said, I remember a time at Catalyst Conference, and Stanley was talking, and he said this. And then somebody after that said, I remember this thing with the orange. There was a guy that had an orange up on the stage, and he told this whole point with the orange, and he was holding the orange up, and he had it. And then people just started remembering stuff. And we probably had about 25 or 30 things just written up on this board. And then I went up to the dry erase board, and that line that was down the middle, I just drew it again, more pronounced. And I said, take a look at this list. This list represents everything that a room full of preachers remembers after hearing all these kind of sermons. And on one side of the spectrum here, people remembered memorable stories, illustrations, or object lessons. And really, almost everything fell on one of these two camps. And people were telling me, I remember this story this guy told about a cat. I remember this story this lady told about this thing. And I remember this object lesson guy held up the orange. I mean, people just connected and just remembered these stories. And some of them went back years and years and years. And so about half of the things people remembered were what I would say are memorable stories, illustrations, or object lessons. We actually spent a whole module inside of Preaching Rocket coaching you on how to do this. It's not what we're talking about today, though. The second thing, though, was very interesting. The second thing people remembered, what I would say was carefully worded principles. And this room full of preachers, they quoted for me verbatim what pastors had said in their sermons. People were saying statements word for word like they were in the room, like they had just heard the message. And they were able to recount or regurgitate or whatever these statements. And these carefully worded principles, we call them sticky statements, that they found their way from a sermon to a heart, to a mind, and sometimes years later they were able to be recalled with just complete accuracy. What is happening there? How can we create statements, craft principles that people could remember years from now? And so here's what I believe, and here's what we're going to talk about today. The key to a sticky sermon is a sticky statement. The key to getting people to remember your sermon is not to get them to remember all the words that you say for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 minutes if you're Mark Driscoll, right? The key to getting people to remember all this information is not to help them memorize all the information. The key to a sticky sermon is a sticky statement. And that's what this room of people was saying. They were recounting to me statements that had stuck with them all these years. And so we call this a bottom line. We call this a sticky statement. Here's what we believe. That if you will work hard to craft a great bottom line, then people will remember your sermon. And if people remember your sermon, there's a far greater chance that they will be impacted by that sermon. And so I want to talk a little bit about why crafting a good bottom line is so important. I mean, why should we spend all this time and energy really agonizing over word choice and figuring out how we can say the sentence in a better way, removing words, adding words, changing words? Why should we spend all this time? Can't we just get up and preach the word? Can't we just get up and says, Paul says this, Matthew writes this, Moses said, can't we just get up and just preach our outline? Can't we just preach what's on our heart? Can't we just share with the people? Why do we have to craft this bottom line? Well, I want to give you a few reasons. First of all is social media. Somebody said that we're not living in the information age anymore, that we're living in the attention economy. Oh, that was a great statement. Because everywhere people go, people are different organizations and people and all the media and everything, and so now we have social media, is just vying for people's attention. And so your congregation comes into church with all these things grabbing for their attention. And so one of the reasons that we need to really work really hard to get that statement is because we want to drop that statement down into their hearts. And one of the ways that they're going to remember it is if it's able to be shared on social media. Let's just be practical here for a second. How cool would it be if people tweeted your sermon out? If during, or maybe not during, but maybe after, or maybe Monday, maybe Tuesday, and if they said, my pastor said this, and they were able to quote that. And that message is going all around through Twitter, through Facebook, people putting it on LinkedIn, people sharing it on all the different social media that's out there. Because we're living in the attention economy, it's even more important to be able to whittle down your sermon into a statement that sticks. But not just your congregation. Working on the sticky statement will actually help your preparation. Look at this quote. I have a conviction that no sermon is ready for preaching, not ready for writing out, until we can express its theme in a short, pregnant sentence as clear as crystal. Now, what is he saying here? He's saying that, hey, we're not ready to preach our sermon. In fact, we're not even ready to write the manuscript or the outline until we know the theme. And I love this descriptor, a short, pregnant sentence as clear as crystal. If I were to ask you, what are you talking about this weekend? What are you preaching about this weekend? If I were to ask you, what was your message about last weekend? Can you express its theme in a short, pregnant sentence as clear as crystal? Because here's what I know. If you can't, then your congregation can't. And so forcing yourselves to prepare this way, and we're going to talk about how to do this, forcing yourselves to prepare this way will actually help you prepare. And here's what I've realized, because I've preached a lot of sermons in my life. I've preached thousands of messages in my life. That's no exaggeration. That's going back to when I was a youth pastor at the age of 18 at Lakeview Baptist Church in Tallahassee, Florida. I've preached thousands and thousands of messages in my life, and I've listened to more. I've listened to more than that. But here's what I know. Having a topic is not the same as having a point. I've listened to a ton of messages. I've preached messages where I had a topic. Someone gave me a topic, or it was next up in Ephesians. I had a topic, but I didn't have a point. And you can have a topic but not have a point. And what I want you to have as a preacher, as a communicator of the gospel, I want you to be able to stand before people and not just have a topic, but to have a point. To have a message that is so ingrained in your heart and in your mind, in your soul, in your spirit, that it just doesn't come out with a bunch of, 30 minutes of words and information, but it comes out as a clear point. And so if you can have that clear point, I promise it'll help your preparation. Information that's important, but we don't remember it, it doesn't make a lasting impact. And so here's what you want. You don't want the end of your sermon to be, noon on Sunday. You don't want the end of your sermon to be when you say amen and everybody walks out the door. You want the end of your sermon to be when it's applied on Thursday. And there's a sense that you never want your sermon to end. But you don't want the end and the action point and the end of your sermon to just be the amen at the end. You want people to remember and interact with that message on Tuesday when they're at work, on Wednesday when they're at school, on Friday when they're out with friends. Imagine communicating all this important information, but if it's just forgotten, it doesn't matter. But if people will remember it and will think about it, the Bible talks about meditating on it. And I think of that as like marinating. If your sermon can be like marinated and just soak into people's hearts and minds and lives, it can make a lasting impact. So what we're talking about today has the potential to really radically affect your people. Listen to Ian. Ian wrote this in our private Facebook group. For all of our Preaching Rocket family, we have a private Facebook group where people actually go in and write the statements that they're working on. And Ian says, thanks for helping us with crafting sermons. The bottom lines are really helping my church members to remember and apply God's word in their life. He's saying, hey, working through this sticky statement, this bottom line, is actually helping my church members. He said it was so stirring, and a guy in our church is creating visuals just for the bottom lines, and he attached a couple pictures. And so this isn't his graphic team. This is a guy in his church is saying, your statements, these sticky statements, I'm going to create graphics about them, and these can be shared all throughout the church, all over the internet. He's sharing them with us in the Preaching Rocket private Facebook group. And so this is really impacting not just the way he preaches, but the way his church interacts with the content. And so I want that for you. And so in just a minute, I'm going to give you a formula for how to do this. In fact, let me tell you where this material comes from today. I am lifting today's material straight out of our Preaching Rocket program. And so people pay to go through our 12 months of coaching. You're basically getting one of those for free today because I'm going to give you some information that I've just lifted right out of there. And so as we do that, just keep that in mind that this is like one of the 12 modules of Preaching Rocket. But I want to talk to you for a minute about the benefits of Preaching Rocket real quick. And I'm going to go through this very quickly because I think you're going to know if you need it and you know if it's going to help you or not. Preaching Rocket is a 12-month program to help you become a better preacher. And the first benefit is this, is you're going to get coaching to help you preach with confidence and skill. As I'm recording this, the Miami Heat just won their second in a row championship. And I actually like the Miami Heat. And I know people hate the Miami Heat, LeBron, that whole deal. What I loved about the finals, it went to Game 7, kind of Game 6 went to overtime. Game 7 was awesome. What I loved about that is you had two of the best coaches in the NBA. You had some of the best players in the NBA on the court. But you had some of the best coaches. Greg Popovich, fantastic coach for the Spurs. Classy guy. But Eric Spoelstra, I believe, is an underrated coach. He's one of the best coaches in the NBA because here's what I know. Great players have great coaches. There's a reason all the best professional athletes have coaches. And so if you want to be a preacher that preaches with confidence and skill, you need a coach. And so in every module, Jeff does most of the coaching. I'll jump in from time to time. Jeff Henderson is at North Point Community Church. He's the lead pastor of Gwinnett Church, one of the Atlanta area churches in the North Point family. And Jeff is a fantastic communicator and a brilliant coach. And so I'm just, jumping in on his coattails, and I'll just jump in from time to time. But Jeff and I will speak into your preaching, into your delivery, into your preparation, and really coach you through that. Not only are you going to be coached by, Jeff and myself, we had to bring in some ringers. And so we've done interviews with some of the greatest communicators that we know. And so Dr. Charles Stanley, Pete Wilson, Louis Giglio, Tony Nolan is a fantastic evangelist in the Atlanta area. And we talked with him about how to do a good invitation. Jeff Foxworthy, the comedian, he will help you be funnier. Dr. Crawford Loretz, Nancy Duarte, Reggie, all kinds of people. And this is growing and growing and growing. And we deliver this to all of our Preaching Rocket family. Every module, I said there's 12 of them. We give you the coaching in 3 ways. So you can watch the video, you can read the ebook, or you can listen to it on your iPod or your iPhone or however you listen to things. And so we want to give you that content in a way that you can consume it. Here's a quote from a children's pastor named Seth. He said, at the beginning of the week, I was burdened with creating an impactful sermon and just about how to go about it. Then I took 30 minutes and watched the first module. The weekly breakdown was fantastic, and I used it to the letter. The sermon Sunday went fantastic. Thanks so much for what you're doing. I know this ministry is helping so many pastors be so much more effective in reaching others for Christ. And Seth is a kids pastor at FBC Magnolia. And he's able to go through this because when you sign your church up for Preaching Rocket, all the communicators, all the preachers, Sunday school teachers, any guest preachers, anybody that you have can benefit from the content. Some of the modules, or Module 1, Seth just mentioned it, is how to build a great sermon. Here's what Jonathan said. He sent us a tweet. He said, thanks, guys. Still on my first module, but my wife thanks you for helping me recover Friday nights for dates and fun. In that first module, we show you a system by how you can get done with your sermon prep earlier in the week so you can have your Saturdays back. We want you to spend Saturday with your family, Friday nights, date night, Saturday with your family, not cramming for your sermon. And so that's what we do in that module. We'll help you build those boxes. Module 3, seeking feedback and criticism. Do you get criticism as a preacher? Do you ever get feedback? Some feedback's healthy, and some criticism is hurtful. And so we want to help you navigate those. And so we'll walk through that in one of the modules. Module 4 is a preaching calendar. Do you know what you're talking about? How do you build that? Who should speak into it? How do you do it? We walk you through that. Module 8, preaching the gospel. Preaching the gospel. What is the gospel, and how do you preach it? Do you preach just a gospel message, or do you preach it every week? We think you should preach it every week, and we're going to show you how in this module. So those are just a few of them. The second benefit of Preaching Rocket, if you were to jump in, is that you'll save time and get a head start with the resource vault. And so when we talk about documents and resources, we don't just talk about them, we actually give them to you. Ryan says this, I'm really enjoying Preaching Rocket. It's made a huge difference in helping me get my Saturday back and putting together the message God has for our church each week. And so we give you worksheets and templates and Excel spreadsheets, stuff that you can use to kind of organize your prep process, organize your teaching calendar. And then the third thing and the final thing that we'll give you is this, is we want to help you make your sermons better with good illustrations. And I wrote good in all caps right there because most sermon illustrations I hear are not good. If they come from joke books and email forwards, and those are not good. And so we want to help you have some content that will make your sermons good. And so we'll give you a library of these when you sign up, but then we send a new one every week. And we write them from, we have communicators, a team of communicators write these, and they're written specifically for preachers. And so we go to history, technology, literature, sports, culture, science, all these different areas. So you can have a well-rounded library of information to put in your sermons. And so we're blessed that so many people have jumped into this program, and we're blessed to be able to serve so many. I want to introduce you to one of them real quick, Dan Kimball. You know Dan because Dan wrote some books. And you've read some of his books. He's a pastor out in California, and he's connected with Preaching Rocket. Listen to what he has to say.
My name's Dan Kimball, and I'm part of a church in Santa Cruz, California called P.R.E.A.C.H. It was a church plant about 8 years ago. And right now I'm actually in Portland, Oregon at Imago Dei Church. I just preached 3 sermons this morning. It's just still wrapping up there. but I wanted to record this and get it out because I really believe in Preaching Rocket. And what Preaching Rocket has really done for me individually and also for our church staff, those that are teaching, they condense all of the best learning that you're seeing out there of communicating in the church and to be preaching, and they put it into very applicable and understandable ways to take that and then put it into action. I did here this morning. Took some of the things I've been learning it in Preaching Rocket and preached without this morning. Now, I've been in this for 20 years in vocational church ministry, to use that word, as a teacher, and it is never, ever, ever, like the longer you're in it, almost the more you need to be stopping and saying, like, how is my preaching doing? What do I need to maybe look at that I've just gotten a routine of thinking it's the best form of communicating, and it isn't? And so Preaching Rocket is really great, whether you're just learning or you're actually been a veteran of 20 years of teaching. And our staff is actually using some of the very things that we have learned through Preaching Rocket to then be evaluating our sermons and basing some of our discussion of effectiveness. And, it's a serious thing, preaching. It's God's inspired word that we have the holy responsibility of teaching. And we need to be learning any effective way of allowing our teaching to be more powerful in people's lives, because we have a holy responsibility with this. And I'm so thankful for Preaching Rocket and what they're doing and how it's affecting me and our staff.
Man, that's awesome. And so we're so grateful for Dan and what God's doing at Vintage Faith. And here's somebody who's been preaching for a long time and has written books and stands up and speaks to people all the time. He's saying, I want to get better.
So at Preaching Rocket, while you work on your message, we work on you. And really that's why we created this coaching program, because we know you work so hard, not just to preach, but to lead your church. And while you're doing all the preaching and teaching and meeting and counseling and dealing with the budgets and all the stuff that you have to deal with, we wanted to create a program that helped you get better. And so you work on your message, and we're going to work on you. Now, you say, how much does Preaching Rocket cost? Well, it's $99 a month for 12 months. And so we tried to price this similar to what you might pay to go to a major conference, one of the big conferences in Atlanta. By the time you add up the conference ticket and maybe another person is going to come with you, and a flight and a hotel or a rental car or all gas or all the things, we know you invest a lot in things, and there's a lot of opportunities. And so we wanted to make this as affordable for you as we could, but also create an easy way for you to pay. And $99 a month for 12 months. That's going to get you access to the entire Preaching Rocket program like I've been talking about. And the cool thing is, because you're on this webinar, we wanted to give you a 14-day free test drive. And this is just, we know you want to see it. You want to see what the videos are like. You want to see what it's like before you commit to do it. And so when you sign up, you'll have 14 days, and you go through the entire first month. You go through the entire first module in those 14 days if you want, and then you can decide to keep on going. If you cancel within those 14 days, your card won't be charged at all. And so we wanted to give you the opportunity to see it. But when you log on during that free test drive, you'll see the first video. You can watch the entire first video from Jeff, where he's going to walk through the major parts of a sermon. He's going to talk about a framework for your message. He's going to talk about what you can do on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday to get done with your message early in the week. And then he's going to show you how to, what we call, build the boxes, and talk through about how to build the message in these boxes. And it's really, really helpful video. And you can watch the entire first video during the trial. And if you want to keep going, you'll get access to all those other topics. And again, this is just a completely free test drive for you, so you can see what the program is like. And I think it will be really, really, really helpful for you. And so I encourage you just to sign up.
Now, I want to get to the topic of the day and talk about how to write a memorable bottom line. So here's what we've done so far. We've talked about why you should write a memorable bottom line. We talked about the benefits of maybe a sticky statement so that people will remember it. I told you it was kind of one of the 12 modules of Preaching Rocket, and we talked about Preaching Rocket and how that can help your church. But now I want to talk to you about the science of creating and crafting this memorable bottom line. And so here's what we've done. We've created an acronym for you. To write a good bottom line, to create a sticky statement, you must preach. And preach is an acronym. So each letter will stand for a different thing, and I'm going to teach that to you right now. And again, this is just being lifted right out of one of the modules of Preaching Rocket. So if you want to know what one of the modules is like, it's like this. All right? So to write a good bottom line, you must preach. So P stands for picture. P stands for picture. So if you want to create a good statement, what you want to do is you want to create a picture for people. Now, I am not talking about a picture with paint. I'm not talking about getting out the construction paper and the markers. When I was a kid, we had something called P.R.E.A.C.H. I don't know if anybody remembers that. But we used to, them things were messy. I'm not talking about painting a picture. I'm not talking about having an artist stand up on the stage and paint while you preach, although that's cool. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about painting a picture with words. Another way to say that is a metaphor. A metaphor is really a word picture. And so you can paint with Microsoft Word. You can paint with Pages. You can paint with your word processor. You can paint with a legal pad and a pen. Painting a picture for people is a powerful way to communicate a statement. So let me give you an example. In 1979, there was a director named Ridley Scott. Ridley Scott's one of my favorite directors. Actually produced, made the movie Gladiator. I love that movie. Fantastic movie. But he also produced in 1979 a movie called Alien. I don't know if you remember this movie, but there's a picture of the movie poster. It had Sigourney Weaver in the movie. She had that shaved head thing going on. It was, I think she shaved the head in the next one actually, but she was in that movie. But when Ridley Scott was wanting to make this movie, he was trying to pitch this movie to the Hollywood producers, because you may have a great script, you may have great actors lined up, but if you don't have the producers with the money, you can't make the movie. And so he's going in, he's got a great script, he's got acting, he's got all this stuff signed up, but he needs somebody to get behind this thing and fund this movie, right, to pay for it. And so he's going in, he's pitching the movie, and people aren't just getting it. They're just not understanding. So he's trying to explain this movie, and so here's what he said. They couldn't understand it. They're like, we don't understand. It's in space. We don't understand what this movie's about. You gotta help us. And so here's what he said. Ridley Scott said, here's what the movie's like, guys. Listen. He said it's like Jaws in outer space. See, now the movie Jaws had come out 4 years before this. It came out in 1975, I believe. It just come out 4 years before this. And Jaws made a ton of money. And everybody knew Jaws. I mean, you didn't even see the shark in the movie Jaws. It was suspenseful. It was scary. And so when Ridley Scott said, hey, my movie Alien, it's like Jaws in outer space, all the people, all the producers and the executives went, oh, we understand now. We get it. And what Ridley Scott did, all he did was he used a metaphor. He had all this information, he had all this stuff, but when he boiled it down into a sticky sentence that used a word picture, everybody understood it. One of my favorite uses of a metaphor to explain something is Steve Jobs. When Steve Jobs introduced the iPod, he could have got up and he could have talked about the technical specifications. He could have got up and said it was a 5 gigabyte MP3 player. It's this wide. It's this thick. It's the dimensions. He could have done all that. But when Steve Jobs introduced the iPod, here's what he said. He said it's 1,000 songs in your pocket. What he did was he took the information and he condensed it down into a sticky statement built on a metaphor. He painted a picture with words, and everybody went, oh, we get it. And when the newspapers and the people reported on this the next day after he introduced the iPod, guess what phrase they used? 1,000 songs in your pocket. Because that was a sticky statement that Steve Jobs used to introduce the iPod. Now listen, Jesus did this. Jesus looked at a group of people, and he looked at them and he said, you are the light of the world. That is a picture. That is a word picture. And so the world is dark, and you've kind of got the light, and you're going out into the world, and you're supposed to be light, and you're supposed to go out, and you are the light of the world. That is a picture. That is a sticky statement. When Jesus looked at him, he said, you are the light of the world. You're the light of the world. And it just clicked in their minds. They went, oh, we get it now. And so as you're working through your message, maybe you're even working through your message for this week, and you're going, I got all this information, I got an outline, I got verses, I got this commentary, I read this thing, I got this story. What are you trying to get people to really, really, really know? What do you want them to tweet? What do you want them to Facebook on Thursday later on? Take it, boil it down into a sentence. What if you used a picture? What if you used a word picture to help craft the statement that people would remember? So P is for picture. It's a powerful, powerful way to communicate your points. P is for picture. R is for rhyme. So we're going preach, right? P is for picture. R is for rhyme. Man, there's something powerful about rhymes, aren't they? We remember rhymes. They stick. They stick with us. In fact, you know rhymes. You don't even know you know rhymes, but you know them. And when people start saying them, you can finish them because they've just dropped down into your heart, into your mind, and they're just there in your subconscious or whatever. They're just in your brain. That's how you're wired. You remember rhymes from when you were a kid. For example, I'm going to put this up on the screen and say this. But you'll fill this in before I even finish the statement. How's this end? Ready? I before E except after. Yeah. Some of you just said that out loud, like, right? You're speaking to yourself right now out loud. And so it's I before E except after C. And you know why you learned that? Because a teacher that you had, like in the 2nd grade, taught you this rule for how to spell stuff. Now, here's the deal about this rule. This rule is wrong. This rule is not true. It is inaccurate. And so they made a second part to the rhyme, right? To give away all the, but except when sounding like A is a neighbor, they made the second part up, but even that's not accurate. There are lots of rules, like weird, for example, and Rottweiler. There are lots of words that don't follow this rule. But you remember this rule, even though it's wrong, because it rhymes. And so your teacher said, I before E, except after C. And here we are as an adult. I'm a 40-year-old adult. And I'm sitting here going, I before E, except after C. And I think of that rule because somebody a long time ago decided to rhyme it. So let's try. What if this applied to other areas of history? How about this one? Columbus sailed the ocean blue in, who do you know? What year did Columbus sail the ocean blue? 1492. And we remember that date in history. That's like more than 500 years ago. We remember that because somebody turned it into a rhyme. Do you know what year Magellan circumnavigated the earth? No. Why? Because no one figured out how to rhyme Magellan with circumnavigate, right? I mean, it just doesn't work that way. We don't know what year Magellan went around the whole earth. I think that was actually more of a bigger deal than what Columbus did. Columbus accidentally found a place, and he didn't even find a place because there were already people there. You can't find a place if there's already people there. He sailed to the wrong place in 1492. But yet that's what we remember because someone rhymed it. We don't remember that Magellan circumnavigated the globe in 1522 because it doesn't really rhyme. And so do you see how rhyme really makes for a great sticky statement? So you take your statement, you take your scripture that you studied, and you say, what is the essence of this passage? How do I boil this down into a statement? How do I boil this down into a sentence? And is there a way to make it rhyme? And so you've got to write a great bottom line, a great sticky statement can rhyme. I want to show you an example of this. I attend, when I'm not speaking somewhere on the weekends, I have the opportunity to speak in some different churches, and that's fantastic. I love doing it. But I also love going to my church because I go to church at North Point, where my pastor is Andy Stanley, one of the greatest preachers and really, he's a great preacher. He's also a great communicator. I'll listen to him talk about anything. And he preaches, and he preached a message a while back in a series called Christian, where he just unpacked what a Christian was. And he preached a message on that passage about judging other people. And he was talking about that. And in this message, he kind of explained a little bit about what a bottom line is. And then he gives the bottom line to the church. And so I got permission from North Point to show you a clip of Andy teaching in this series called Christian and using what we're talking about here, creating a bottom line. And so it's just a screen capture of their website. And so I'm going to play this for you.
Is saying. Now, this is such a big deal that I just want you to be the elite Jesus followers who are never confused about this ever again. Even if you don't like it, I just think forever and ever, you're going to be the ones that when somebody says, well, the Bible says not to judge, you can go, no. So I was trying to come up with a little phrase that would just kind of, just kind of stick this in your heart and your conscience. And so I came up with one, and it is so churchy. It's like so churchy. It is so preacher-esque. I mean, it's so bad. But so what I thought we would do is we would kind of go old school for just a minute. How many of you grew up going to a church where when the pastor said something significant, the men would growl, amen, amen. You got any? Okay, good. Okay, in just a minute I'm going to ask you to do that. How many of you grew up in churches where the whole time the preacher's talking, and the people in the audience are going, that's right, yes, yes. And it's like, anybody grew up in a church where they just talk to the preacher the whole time? Yeah. Every once in a while, I find myself speaking to a congregation like that, and honestly, about 10 minutes in, I go, okay, time out. You're killing me. Shh. let me talk, okay? It's a tradition. It's a tradition. Nothing wrong with it. It's just different. But if you grew up in that, in just a minute, I'm going to ask you to just bring it, okay? Just go back to your grandmama's church. Go back to grandmama's church and you just bring it. That guy who's always saying that thing, okay? Now, if you're not a church person at all and you just think that whole thing's weird, at least you've seen this in movies. So I want you to participate too, okay? Way up there in the balcony at Buckhead Church, don't hide up there. I want you to come on. I want you to get involved, and I want everybody. I'm going to give you the bottom line, and then I want you to do your best, old school, whatever your tradition brings to mind. Okay, no profanity. Okay, let's keep it clean because I've heard that before too. That's kind of funny. All right, so here it is. What the Apostle Paul is trying to tell us is simply this: judge the believing, not the heathen. No, that was terrible. No, wait, time out. Everybody stop. You're not supposed to laugh.
Isn't that funny? Judge the believing, not the heathen. And I remember sitting there in the auditorium and hearing that and go, oh man, that's so brilliant. Because he actually kind of semi-explained what a bottom line is, about how he tries to boil it down. And then he spent that 90 seconds or 2 minutes setting it up, kind of telling that whole funny story and just setting up. And I'm leaning up forward on the edge of my chair going, tell me the statement. Tell me the statement. So that's brilliant communication strategy there of just, making me hungry to hear the statement. And so he didn't even just say it and rush past it. I mean, he set it up, came back to it at the end of the message. It was fantastic. But that's a rhyme. Now, that's a funny rhyme. Judge the believing, not the heathen. And so he knew that was kind of funny and cheesy and churchy, so he just built the whole kind of little moment around that. But you could take your point and create a rhyme out of it, if you can. And so you could use a picture, word picture, or you could use a rhyme. So let's keep going. E stands for echo. Echo is a great one. If you, I love politics. I have this secret desire to be mayor of a small town, and I just think it would be fantastic to be mayor of a small town or dictator of a small country. But I don't know. That's probably bad. And there's probably some pride involved in that. But I love politics, and so I love political. See, I know some people hate it and whatever. I just love politics. I actually love small town politics. I think small town politicians can make a big difference because they can do things that actually impact people's lives. And so anyway, I love politics, and so I love political speeches. One of my greatest opportunities or areas of learning as a communicator or preacher is I listen to preachers. In fact, you can go back on YouTube and listen to great political speeches, and you'll learn a ton. But one of the techniques that communicators, politicians, and speechwriters, because there's speechwriters that write most of these speeches, will use is a technique called echo. And echo is simply repeating a word, saying a word earlier in a sentence, and repeating it later on in a sentence. And by saying it twice, it makes it more powerful. I'll give you an example of this from John F. Kennedy when he was inaugurated as the president. It was very cold. He's standing in Washington, D.C. It's cold outside. And he delivered this speech. And here's one of the most famous lines in all politics. He said, "Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country." And that is a great, fantastic use of echo. And so the word country is repeated. Ask is repeated. Do for you is repeated, right? And so that's a great use of echo. And so it's introducing a word earlier on and then saying it again later on in a sentence. I want to give you a spiritual example of this. I was preaching a message one time on forgiveness. And I was preaching the passage of Peter, that passage where Jesus says to Peter, Peter says, how many times should we forgive? And Peter's feeling really good. He's like, should we forgive? Not just 7 times like the rabbis say. What about 70 times 7? Would 70 times 7 be like 490 times? Would that be a good limit? And I was talking through that passage and just talking, about forgiveness. And the bottom line that I used in that message was this: forgiven people forgive. Forgiven people forgive. And throughout the whole message, I was trying to help people understand what have we been forgiven of. Because I'll tell you this, I've been forgiven of a lot. I mean, I feel like Paul sometimes, like I'm the chief of sinners. And I've been forgiven of a lot. And so how hypocritical would it be for me, who has been forgiven of much, to be an unforgiving person? And so if I've been forgiven of a lot, shouldn't I forgive other people? Because forgiven people forgive. And I tried to say that as many times as I could say it in the message in hopes that a year from now, somebody who is wronged, who is wronged, and they could respond in anger, and they would almost be entitled to respond in anger, would remember, oh, you know what? I remember this message one time. The guy said, forgiven people forgive. And you know what? I know this person wronged me. I know this is wrong, and I know whatever. But I've been wrong. I've been forgiven of a lot. And so I'm going to choose to forgive here because forgiven people forgive. And that's echo. That's echo. It's a powerful, powerful tool that speechwriters know that if they can craft those statements, those are the statements that are going to get on the news. Those are the statements that are going to get quoted. Those are the statements that here we are, decades later, quoting John F. Kennedy in a preaching rocket webinar because it's a powerful, powerful statement. So that's E. E is for echo. A is for alliteration. Now, I love alliteration because I grew up in a Baptist church. And in the Baptist church I grew up at was First Baptist Church of Jacksonville. Our church actually had co-pastors. Dr. Homer G. Lindsay Jr. and Dr. Jerry Vines were our co-pastors. And one of them would preach on Sunday morning, one of them preached on Sunday night, one of them would preach on Wednesday night. They were just rotated all around, co-pastors. And what I learned from Dr. Jerry Vines was alliteration, the art of alliteration. That even alliterated. That was funny. And I tell you, in the church I grew up at, everything was alliterated. I mean, it was sermons like the practice of prayer, the power of prayer, the presence of prayer, the purpose of prayer, the pain of prayer. It's just like somebody had a thesaurus out and they were just looking for all the words that start with P. But it fit, man. It fit with the text, and it was a skill. I learned that in seminary too. I had a preaching class, and we went through how to alliterate, and it was fantastic. But some of my favorite uses of alliteration don't just come from sermons; they come from commercials. Like for example, there's a pizza commercial on TV for DiGiorno Pizza, and they use alliteration in their statement. And I would venture to guess that it's one of the only pizza statements that because they say it's not delivery, it's DiGiorno. It's not delivery, it's DiGiorno. That's alliteration. It's not delivery, it's DiGiorno. And again, I don't know if you know the statements for other pizza places. Sometimes when I talk about this out loud, somebody in the audience will scream out, Little Caesars, right? Because they have pizza. Well, that's echo, right? Pizza, echo. But it's not delivery, it's DiGiorno. It's alliteration. It's alliteration, and it's a powerful way. It's a powerful memory tool to craft a sticky statement. So here's what you do. You say, I got my sermon, I got my text, I studied it, I'm preaching this, I've got that, here's the angle, here's what I feel like God wants me to say. But how can I craft it in a way that will help people remember it, that will stick in their hearts? Can I use alliteration to make the statement more memorable? I was preaching one time on money and possessions. And that passage where Jesus said, what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world but loses his soul? And I was just talking about how we pursue stuff and we just want stuff and more stuff and more stuff. And the statement I kept coming back to was your soul is more important than your stuff. Your soul is more important than your stuff. And I just tried to say that a bunch of times in the message. Your soul is more important than your stuff. So in hopes that someday on down the line, people would remember that. And they would be shopping at the mall or Target or Walmart or, Bass Pro Shop or whatever. And they'd be like, I really need this new boat. And they'd go, you know what? No, my soul is more important than my stuff. I should invest in my soul, not just in stuff that's going to fade away. That's alliteration. It's alliteration. It's a powerful, powerful tool for creating a sticky statement. So you could use that. Sometimes when I teach this, people try to use all of these and to create one statement. And as you go through this, P.R.E.A., I'll tell you the other two, you don't have to use all of them. In fact, most great bottom lines, they don't use all of them. They may use one, they may use two. Every now and then I see a really good statement. Somebody shares it in our Facebook group. It's got 3 of these in there. But the goal isn't to use all of these techniques to create a statement. It's to use one of them. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll start with, all right, here's what I'm trying to say. And I've got the idea. It just doesn't sound good yet. And so then I'll go through the filter. In the first module, when you sign up for the trial, you'll see that. There's some worksheets that we give you. But one of the worksheets that we give you in this particular module is I actually have it printed out and I keep it on my desk. And so I'll go, I got the idea. Here's what I kind of want to say. All right, can I do P? And I'll just noodle around on that for a little bit. All right, picture. No, that's not working for me. Let's try rhyme. Can we rhyme it? No, that one's not working. And I'll try different variations of that until I get the one that works. And so you don't have to use all these. Maybe this would be like a checklist. And we'll give you the worksheet. You can print it out and keep it on your desk. I still use it to this day. And I made this up. And so I keep the worksheet there. And so that's that one. So let's do the next one. The next one's contrast. We got alliteration and then we got contrast. Contrast, you know what contrast is. It's just two things that are opposed to each other. And so I'll give you just some examples of this. Here's one. This actually came from one of our Preaching Rocket person going through our Preaching Rocket coaching. The only way we can properly stand before God is on our knees. And so do you see what he did there? He contrasted standing and kneeling. The only way we can properly stand before God is on our knees. Standing and kneeling. That's a contrast. And that's a great statement, because when we're talking about coming to God, in humility, praying, we can pray in confidence, but our confidence does not turn into arrogance, and so we need to be humble. So we come before God, and we should come before God on our knees. And that's a great statement. The only way we can properly stand before God is on our knees. That's contrast. Again, it's really a struggle for me not to use Andy Stanley as an example for all these, because he does all these so well. But he was preaching one time, and he said this: would you rather die from something or for something? That's a contrast. That's actually alliteration and contrast mixed together. You see how those two go together? Would you rather die from something or for something? And he just said, hey, look, we're all going to die. Everybody dies, but would you rather die from something or would you rather die for something? And what a great, great quote. Those two ideas that just contrast each other. If you were to read the book of Proverbs, it's a fantastic book. I try to read Proverbs as much as I can, because I just, it's just such wisdom. I mean, maybe that's why it's called the book of wisdom, I guess. I'm a genius, right? It's the book of wisdom, and I want to be wise, and so I read Proverbs. And so many of the Proverbs are contrast, right? The way of the godly is this, but the way of the foolish is this. The rich is this, the poor is this. It's just this great contrast all throughout Proverbs. Great statements. And I think one of the reasons we remember so many of those is because they're worded in such a way that we contrast them together. And so that's C. And then H is, we'll end up with this. If you do all this really well, P.R.E.A.C., then you're going to end up with a hook. A hook. Now, a hook, when I think of a hook, I think of music, because I love music. I have a guitar in my office, and I have this secret desire to be a country music star. I don't think I'll be a country music star, but I'd go play in bars or something. I don't know. I think that would be fun. But I love music, and here's what I know. In most great songs that are memorable, that get on the radio or whatever, there's a hook. Sometimes the hook is a guitar, maybe a guitar, a lick there, a little intro, a few measures of just this guitar music. But sometimes it's a phrase. And so usually when we get a good phrase, we'll repeat it several times throughout the song. And so it's the pre-chorus, or it's that part of the chorus that we just keep coming back to. It's that guitar part that we just keep coming back to. And so once we've kind of got something good, we use it multiple times throughout the song, because that's the hook. That's how we get people. And so that's why I could play like 5 seconds of a song and you would immediately know the rest of the song, because it's hooked you in. So when you get this statement, when you've got this statement built on a metaphor or a rhyme or alliteration or contrast, when you got this, or echo, when you've got this thing built, what you're going to do is you're going to use that statement now as your hook to keep drawing people back in to the message, because people's minds wander. People's minds wander. Social media age, attention economy. People's minds are all over the place. What's for lunch? So we're going to use this hook to bring them back in. So once you've got that great statement, that statement is a hook for your message to bring people back in. Now, here's what I want to show you. Jesus was the master of this. Jesus did this really, really well. And that's why we can learn a lot. I think you should learn from comedians and politicians and other preachers. But the master communicator is Jesus. And so Jesus said some things in the Bible that are just fantastic, and we're quoting them, and we remember them, and we know them today. And so go read the words in red, because Jesus speaks in red. And go read the words of Jesus, and you're going to see these principles in action. Let me just show you some of them. Look at some of them. You are the salt of the earth. Which one is that? That's picture. It's a metaphor, right? Love one another as I have loved you. Which one is that? Well, echo. Love is repeated twice. Also contrast. You love, I love. Contrast those two things. How about this one? Whoever finds his life will lose it. There's contrast, right? You got a person finding life, you got a person losing life. I am sending you out as lambs among wolves. That's a picture. Lambs among wolves, sending you out as lambs among wolves. They got that. This is a farming, farm community where they had lambs, and the wolves came and attacked the lambs, and but we're being sent out as lambs among wolves. That's a picture, but also contrast. They got lambs and wolves. To whom much is given, much is required. You got echo in there, much. You got contrast, giving, required. I mean, Jesus was a master of this. Go read some of the statements of Jesus, the ones you remember, just think through them, and you're going to go, oh man, that's a metaphor. Oh, that's a picture. Oh, that's an echo. That's contrast. That's alliteration. I mean, you go through that, and Jesus was the master of this. And so here's my hope for you. You've got a sermon coming up. This works for just anybody communicating, by the way. Maybe you've got a business presentation. Maybe you're about to do a TED Talk. I don't know. You've got a board meeting to go to. You're trying to get your kids to understand something. This principle, this formula, it works for creating statements that are memorable and sticky all the time. And so you've got a talk coming up. Maybe it's a sermon. Maybe it's something else. Just an important meeting. But you've got a message coming up, and you've got an idea. You've got content. You've got an outline. You've got the text. You feel like God wants you to say this. You've got heart. You got all these things. But if you will take all of that and use this formula to create a sticky statement, and then when you get that sticky statement, say it over and over and over and over and over again, people will remember your message. And you will not just have a topic. You will have a point. You will not just communicate information. You will communicate information that drops an anchor down into the heart of a listener who will remember that when they're at work, when they're at school, when they're at life, in their family. And it will make a difference. One of the coolest things we see is, I mentioned that Facebook group earlier. Check this out. Here's Nate. I'll show you how this actually works in real life. Nate here on the left side, he says, got to get some help from my preaching team. All right. And so when you jump into Preaching Rocket, you get a team of preachers, hundreds of preachers who are going through the same stuff as you. And he wants to talk on Proverbs 29:25. He's like, what's a clear and compelling line? And then there's all these comments. There's all these comments of people that just help us just process. Here on the right side, Mike's like, all right, bottom line masters, doing an overview of life of Samson, looking for something. I jumped in here. Other people jump in. Got 15 comments going on here on this one. And what we're doing is we're just helping each other get these statements better. And so when you jump in to Preaching Rocket, we will help you with your bottom line in the private Facebook group. And so I told you earlier where you could go and sign up, therocketcompany.com/preaching. You can go and you can get that 14-day trial. You can jump in right now. You'll get the first module, the whole video. You get the ebook, the audio. You download that, listen to it, watch it. Gather your team together. Get your youth pastor together. Get some people in your church together. Watch the video. You can jump into the Facebook group. You can do all that. Remember, you get those bonuses. I'm going to give you that next resource, $99 resource. And then if you stay with us, and that's what we hope you do. I'll be honest. We want you to experience the 14-day trial. Even if you don't stay, that's fantastic. Hope it helps. But we want you to stay and journey with us through for the next 12 months, because we really believe that if you'll get better as a preacher, your church will get better. If you get better, church will get better. And so we want to help you. We're honored to do that. I hope today's been helpful. I'd love to hear from you which one of these P.R.E.A.C.H hits home with you. Which ones maybe what are you working on? Just tweet us one of your bottom lines. We'd just love to read what you're working on and what's happening. If we can serve you in any way, if you have any questions, you can email us, tweet us, leave us a comment, call us. Chat with us on our website. However you want to reach out to us, our entire team is here to help you succeed. So thank you for making time today to spend that with us, to work on the craft of communication. Hope this has been helpful for you. God bless, and hope you have a great, 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 great weekend.